The topic evaluated in today's video is: should the Union of South Africa in 1910 be a part of South Africa's heritage? Firstly, we need to define the word heritage. UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, defines heritage as the product and witness of the different traditions and of the spiritual achievements of the past, and thus an essential element in the personality of the peoples. This describes how important heritage and cultural identity is for a country. The Union of South Africa in 1910 was an important stepping stone for South African history. On the 31st of May in 1910, South Africa became an independent country that had officially severed ties from the imperial rule. This laid the foundation for every part of history that has happened since then. Mabongone wrote that black movements also owe their creation to the Union of South Africa. This has been a powerful event in the past and will still be a powerful event for the future of South Africa. Without the Union, the country would still be under imperial rule, and an oppressive dynasty would have ruled for a lot longer than it did. Unfortunately, many people in South Africa see the Union of South Africa as another celebration of the white oppressor and not the unification of the country. This opinion unfortunately leads to why this day is not celebrated, especially in 2010, where a century of South Africa's independence was marked. The Union of South Africa was the first of many unions which fought for change and freedom. It started the journey for others to form throughout history. When considering why the Union is not commemorated, we need to consider who is in charge. Miss Michelle Kokomua says that there are always gatekeepers for history who will control the narrative to suit their political views and their idea of what the future should look like. The South African government chose to not teach the Union for many years. This was only corrected when the new CAPS curriculum came in, but it is still only taught and not commemorated. The past of South Africa has been silenced and kept in the shadows, away from the education system. The event meets Partington's 5 criteria for historical significance. The only criteria that is debated is how much it affects present-day lives. The answer is significantly. There would be no united South Africa if it was not for the Union, or it would have happened much later. There would be no workers' unions and no unification. This shows that the voice of the political party in charge has been echoed throughout the history books, while the forgotten history has been silenced. It has now been 114 years since the Union, and it needs to be commemorated. Anything before 1994 is riddled with violence, segregation, and war, yet we do not dismiss the part it played in South Africa's history. We learn about Sharpeville, and we also learn about the militarized wing of the ANC. This wing was led by Nelson Mandela, as he stated, "In my mind, we are closing a chapter on this question of a non-violent policy." Nelson Mandela is celebrated as an icon and a hero, despite the fact that he led violent attacks against the apartheid regime. While I do not condone the political party of the time, we still need to consider all views. One perspective may have been the loss of loved ones, harm, violence, and structural damage. Another perspective may be that Mandela made the ultimate sacrifice by putting aside his morals and taking the difficult step into militarization for freedom. How can we celebrate Nelson Mandela, but not the union of the country he fought for? Unfortunately, many people in South Africa have been marginalized, which creates trauma that makes it hard to view other opinions. According to Masterclass, marginalization puts people in powerless positions based on one or several dimensions of exclusion. This gives the oppressor power over the marginalized group or the silenced group. This is sometimes used by the people in charge of a country to stay in charge by only educating the public on the view that they think is needed. Heritage Day is also considered a confusing holiday. Our country has had a violent past, and we now have so many cultures to consider in South Africa. The question for Heritage Day is, whose heritage are we celebrating? The Zulus, the Afrikaners, the English, or the Xhosa? These are just a few examples of the conflicting pasts. Yet we still commemorate this day because it is an idea and not a celebration of a contradicting day such as the Union of South Africa. Miss Michelle Kukumua said that no one wants to be reminded of the violence that ultimately built South Africa. Yet we celebrate Mandela and the unified heritages of all South African citizens. This seems unjust, and therefore the Union of South Africa in 1910 should be commemorated in South Africa's heritage. Thank you.